right, so welcome. My name is Graham Bullock. I'm a professor of political science at Davidson College and also the faculty director of the Deliberative Citizenship Initiative. And I'm here today to tell you a little bit about our really exciting webinar, a really exciting American Values Deliberative Forum series that is designed to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. But first, I thought I'd give a little bit of background about the DCI, the Deliberative Citizenship Initiative, which our motto is building democracy one conversation at a time. And I've got a video to share with you. But first, kind of important announcement that we are now a part of the Institute for Public Good, which is a new initiative at Davidson that's designed to equip students to address society's challenges and emerge as ethical public leaders through 5 main program areas: civic engagement, deliberation, and free expression, which the DCI is a part of, public policy and research, arts and public life, and ethics, honor, and leadership. And we're really excited to be a part of this new initiative and to be able to sort of foster these connections between different aspects of searching for and creating public good for society. So as a little bit of background, I've got a very short video to share, which gives some background about the DCI and our kind of purpose and how it is designed. So I'm going to hit that and allow you to listen.
Our contemporary public sphere is in crisis. We have deep concerns about our society, and yet we feel unheard and unrecognized. We want to understand the concerns of others, and yet we are anxious about interacting with those whom we disagree.
We feel that our civic life has become so fragmented that we are incapable of engaging with one another on the issues that most animate and trouble us. Simultaneously, our conception of citizenship has become infected by provincialism and pettiness. Instead of bringing us together around a shared sense of identity, it has been subsumed by divisive debates about who counts as citizens.
Rather than conceiving of citizenship as an uplifting set of mental rights and responsibilities that we hold in common as we face our collective challenges together, we have reduced it to questions of geography, ethnicity, and immigration status.
Against this backdrop, Davidson College has initiated the Deliberative Citizenship Initiative, or DCI, a campus and community-wide project focused on the uses of deliberation as an alternative to the non-constructive crosstalk that has come to dominate our public discourse.
The purpose of the DCI is to create opportunities for Davidson students, faculty, staff, alumni, and members of the wider community to productively engage with one another on difficult and contentious issues facing our community and society. It aims to teach deliberative skills like actively and empathetically listening and rigorously and respectfully expressing one's own ideas. It works to reinforce humane instincts like open-mindedness, humility, and an action orientation that make robust public discourse possible. It aspires to catalyze creative solutions to our greatest challenges, analyze the deliberative process itself so that we can continually improve it, and create a strong, deliberative community.
Such a community welcomes, rather than fears, productive disagreement and good argument, which lie at the heart of intellectual and democratic life. We welcome you to join this community, our community, and participate in any of the DCI's co-curricular, curricular, or community-based programs, from its deliberative forums, deliberative D teams, deliberative pedagogy collaborative, or its deliberative citizenship fellows program.
Help us build our democracy together, one conversation at a time.
Okay, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of background about what the DCI is. As the video said, our purpose is to create opportunities for Davidson students, faculty, staff, and members of the wider community to really engage with one another on the challenging topics facing our society and our community, local and global. And went through our different goals: teaching deliberative skills, reinforcing humane instincts, building meaningful community, catalyzing creative solutions, and improving deliberative practices through rigorous research. And you can learn more all about this at our website, deliberativecitizenship.org. But what I'm, and then just a little more, just kind of, and I think this is helpful, to kind of framing the series that I'm going to talk about in a moment. Our sort of deliberative system at DCI kind of starts with our fellows, who are students who are trained in facilitating challenging and contentious conversations. And then they actually go and do that work after they've gone through our intensive training program through deliberative forums, which are kind of large events, as well as D teams, which are small scale, iterative conversations with not only students, but also non-students, faculty, staff, alumni, members of the community. And we also do social events and a lot of outreach and research. And then the students also do their own fellows project, their own deliberation fellows projects, which can be on campus in the community by themselves or with partners, and they are out there kind of amplifying the work of trying to create a more deliberative culture, both at Davidson and beyond. And this is an example of one of our forums we did last winter on income and wealth disparities. Should we address them? And if so, why and how? We had a great panel of 4 experts on this topic, and our president, Doug Hicks, was the facilitator of the conversation, and then are followed by a series of conversations among the audience after the expert roundtable. And we have done, I think, a total of 19 of these forums over the last 5 years. And we're excited for the forum series that we're hosting this year on American values in the context of the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And I'm really excited that we're able to be co-hosting this event, this series of events, with both Duke University and it's the Provost Initiative on Pluralism, Free Inquiry, and Belonging, and UNC Chapel Hill, University of North Carolina, and the Program for Public Discourse there. And we have a series of 4 forums, 4 sets of expert roundtables that we'll be hosting. And I want to give a shout out to my co-collaborators in this initiative, Deandra Rose, who's a professor in the Sanford School of Public Policy and in political science and history at Duke, and Kevin Marinelli, who's a teaching associate professor of communication and a senior fellow of rhetorical studies in the Program for Public Discourse at UNC Chapel Hill. And Deandra had, I think, class. She couldn't be here today, but Kevin is here with us. And so shout out to Kevin. Thanks for joining us. And maybe, Kevin, we can come back towards the end and you can help answer any questions that people have along the way. So, but really excited for working with them on this, I think, ambitious but exciting and really meaningful series of forums. So the 4 forums, as you probably saw in some of the materials that we've shared publicly, are 2 in the fall semester and 2 in the spring semester. The first and the third we're going to be hosting here at Davidson College. And the second one, Kevin is organizing at UNC Chapel Hill. And the fourth one, Deandra is putting together at Duke. And the 4 topics look at different values, different founding values for the of the American Republic that are embedded not only in the Declaration of Independence, but also the Constitution, and specifically the preamble to the Constitution. So starting with unity and equality, a more perfect union, all men are created equal, 2 very important values that are often complementary, but sometimes can be in conflict with another. And so our panels will look at the sort of those relationships between these values, both in the founding era and throughout our history of 250 years. And then the third element, which is, I think, really interesting, is and exciting is that we'll link that conversation to a contemporary policy topic, a contemporary political controversy. So for the first one, it's the case of citizenship and immigration. And you can, if you think about it for a moment, you can see how unity and equality can kind of be important to that issue in different ways, right? You can have arguments, deploying unity in favor of immigration restrictions, or in favor of, sort of more open immigration policies, and likewise with equality. And that's true of all of our themes of these different forums. So the second one is on balancing self-government and national stability, the case of presidents, institutions, and the people. And the third is on balancing liberty and general welfare, the case of personal freedoms and social safety nets. And the fourth is on justice and the rule of law, the case of constitutional rights and judicial interpretation. A little more background on our first one, coming up on September 30th. We've got an amazing panel of scholars from philosophy and legal theory and history who have different perspectives, different scholarship on, both the sort of general themes of unity and equality, and also citizenship and immigration. And they also have kind of different viewpoints on this issue. Some are, a little more kind of positive about more open immigration, and some are a little more skeptical. And so we're hoping that it'll be a very rich and deep conversation hosted by and moderated by one of our own history professors here at Davidson, John Wertheimer, who is an American historian specializing particularly on the 19th century. And it's on September 30th, 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And you can come in person, or you can join us online via Zoom, and possibly also YouTube if we run out of Zoom space. So it's really open, to everyone in not only the Davidson community, not only in the North Carolina community, but everywhere, and we really want it to be as open and inclusive as possible. Kevin's got an amazing forum and panel that he's been creating for our second one that will be hosted at UNC Chapel Hill. And then and Deandra's already starting to work, and I'm already starting to work on our ones for the spring. So so that's the forum. And now I want to, so I can answer, kind of questions later about the sort of the expert roundtables, but I wanted to spend a lot of today, before opening up for discussion, about how you all can get involved in this series. Like I said, we want it to be as inclusive and helpful to people, not only, in North Carolina, South Carolina, and across the United States in higher education, but also in other fields, in faith communities, in K-12 institutions, in local government, looking for something to do related to the 250th anniversary that, is complements, the parades and the celebrations, the fireworks that we're going to be, of course, having. But how do we also engage with our values and the policy controversies facing our country and that have faced our country over the last 250 years? So the first way is to pretty straightforward, is hosting watch parties of those expert roundtables. So when Kevin has his roundtable up at UNC, when Deandra's organizing hers up at Duke, we're going to host watch parties here at Davidson with food, and we'll have the panel, the roundtable up on the big screen, and it'll be a kind of fun way to kind of engage with something that's happening off campus. And you all can do the same wherever you are for any and all of our four forums, our four expert roundtables. And then we have that hour-and-a-half conversation. We hear these experts, these scholars talk about the issues, and then the hope is that it generates energy and enthusiasm and momentum to say, I want to talk about this with my fellow citizens, broadly defined, and to then offer opportunities for them to do so through a series of community conversations. And what I'm going to lay out in a moment is a couple of different models that you might adapt and adopt to do so. So the first is a kind of a single main event model where you organize, a community conversation in a big room somewhere, or it could be a small scale, small, depending on how many you expect. But it's a single event where you say, after the roundtable, come out, next week on Tuesday to join our community conversation where you can talk about what you've just heard. The second model is the multiple small conversation model, where you host, small conversations, small discussion groups multiple times, during the next week following the expert roundtable, recognizing that not everybody can make Tuesday night at 6 p.m. or whatever, but if you have the capacity, you could offer, sort of multiple times in multiple places. The third model is to embed it in a class, in a course that you're teaching that is touching on relevant themes and topics, and you could encourage students to attend the expert roundtable. We will record the roundtable, so if they miss it, they have a football game or whatever, they'll be able to watch the recording afterwards, but before your class or before the community conversation, and be as prepared as someone who attended it live. And then you could have a conversation in your class following about the topics and connect it to the themes in your course. So those are the three big picture approaches and ideas for hosting something associated with these roundtables. What I'd like to do now, and here is the sort of watch party concept, this is one of our deliberative forums. We actually sort of project our roundtable discussions when they're in person like this on a big screen that people can join in. They can see either in person or via Zoom. And so you could do something similar, at your institution for any of our 4 roundtables. And we use a device called an OWL to enable sort of 360-degree, perspective. The OWL sits in the middle of the table, and you can see everyone, and it rotates to whoever is talking at the time. But there are other models in which to sort of host these and project these approaches. And so in any case, the idea is host a watch party for the roundtables. I've tried to map out some variables, some components, some things to think about as you consider, okay, what do I need to do this, community conversation? What are the design elements? And they include, will you have facilitators or not? Do you have that capacity? We recommend it if you do, but they're not necessary. You can also have a kind of self-facilitation process and give people guidance and, through, conversation agreements and encouraging deliberative dispositions, which I'll talk about in a moment. How many people do you expect, right? That obviously, drives how much space you need, if you're going to provide food, et cetera. Will you provide a deliberation guide to provide some foundational knowledge and background for participants? We've actually developed, I've had 2 summer research fellows this past summer write deliberation guides for each of those 4 forums. So we have, and they're about 10, 15 pages long, with both some background information and a sort of default template for a discussion with discussion questions, et cetera. We also have some shorter versions that you could adapt as well. I'll say a little bit more about those in a moment. How much time you want to dedicate to these community conversations, who your audience is, what format you want to have it take, what are your expected outcomes, what conversation agreements, what kind of follow-up do you want to have after the community conversation, and then do you want them to be iterative in the sense of you come for the first one, and then you also come to the second one, and then you're in the same group even perhaps, so the conversation continues over time. So those are some of the variables to think about. There's no necessarily right answer. You have to sort of think about your own context and what makes sense for you and your location, your institution. I'm going to go through a couple of these. I was going to sort of present our model, the DCI model, as just one way, one approach to letting some people in from the Zoom. So, and so this is our approach. It's not the end all and be all, but it's a reference point. So we do have trained student facilitators. In the past, we've had 150 people, about half in person, half online, attend our forum. So maybe we'll get that same number for these ones. We do have that deliberation guide. We plan for the community conversations, which we call D teams, to be 2 hours long. And we invite anybody, right? So it's students, non-students, anyone can participate, both in person and online. We try to keep the groups relatively small, 6 to 10 people. We haven't usually included food for these community conversations, but it is an option. And we also do have a sort of set of conversation agreements that people can enjoy.
It's like a class, I'm afraid.
I'm going to continue watching this.
Okay.
Mute yourself if you go off until the question and answer period. That'd be great. And then follow up. How are you going to follow up? We develop a series of pathways guides that you could also make use of, that gives people options to follow up on the discussion they were just a part of, and then invite them to future events. And then we also will have a pathway where people can sign up for these conversations now, and then they'll be able to be in the same group for both the first and second set of community conversations. And then the idea there is that you develop some relationships, some levels of trust that, in the second conversation, you feel a little more comfortable to be able to talk among your group, and have, be your more authentic self. So that's kind of our framework. Here's our, kind of poster, our flyer for our community conversations, which we again call D teams, and the 2 topics. And again, so the deadline for signing up for these is this Friday on our end, because we then create those teams. My students in my American politics class are going to be participating in these D teams. I have some colleagues in history who are doing the same, embedding the participation in both the expert roundtable and the community conversations as part of the course. And they'll write a reflective essay at the end of the class, examining how what they talked about, what they listened to as part of this series relates and connects to what they've learned in the course. And it's a great way to sort of connect, a textbook, sort of concepts and frameworks to real world issues and conversations. Okay, so a couple kind of things to highlight. Facilitation, right? So what we do, we have these fellows that go through a program of training and hosting these kind of conversations. You may not have a similar program at your institution, but if you do, you could, deploy your fellows, for this work in these community conversations. You could also, run some trainings now for students or community members on how to facilitate these discussions. We're just in the midst of our own training program. We had the first session on Sunday, and we'll have our second session next Sunday. If there is interest out there, I mean, there's a lot of programs, that run these kind of training programs. If there is interest, I'm willing to sort of explore, hosting a shorter training for people and institutions that are interested as they prepare for these series. And so if that's of interest, certainly reach out to me, and we can see how much interest that there is, and how that timing might work. So format, right? So you can do this online or in person or hybrid, right? You can do it both, or choose one or the other. You can choose to have food or not have food. You think about, the size and type of tables. I like round tables, that enable, 6 to 8 people around them. And then how big are your groups going to be, right? So if you do breakout rooms, how big, generally if you find like 4 people is minimum, and bigger than 10 is hard, and it's related to the time, right? If you have the shorter amount of time, the smaller your group should be. Longer periods of time, you can have slightly larger groups. So here's some examples of our D teams from past years. Like I said, we both do in person and online. And then here's a kind of example of a single event, right? You have a large space where you have multiple tables and facilitators potentially. And this is an example from one of our our semester kickoff parties, where they deliberate and have pizza, and we make it a kind of fun event to attend. And you guys could do the same for as part of this American Value Series. So the food option, right? So you can provide pizza. This is an event, a deliberation we did on honor code at Davidson that we had food. We catered it, and it was and that helps people get out, and it was over dinner, right? 5 to 6:30. So so that's an option to consider if you have funds and to make that happen. So who is your audience, right? That's another question to think about, right? So I listed all these earlier: faith communities, civic organizations, libraries, K-12 institutions, colleges and universities, local governments, right? I think everyone is beginning to think about, okay, what are we going to do for this 250th anniversary, particularly in this kind of polarized environment and time we're in right now? How can we engage with it in a productive way? And so you could choose to reach out to any, all, or some of these different stakeholder groups. If you're at a institution, at a higher education institution, you also have a choice of including faculty, staff, students, community members, alumni, any and all of these groups. But to be intentional about it, and then take the actions, go the pathways, to reach out to those different groups. So the length of time question, right? So I've mapped, these are the kind of 3 different lengths that we've experimented with over the last 5 or 6 years, calling the kind of 2-hour experience, the 2-hour length of the full experience. We actually had done 1.5 hours at some point, and our fellows voted to go back to the 2-hour length because they really felt that you needed that 2 hours to really dive into the issues we were engaging with. I think that's going to be even more true for these topics because they're so layered, right? You're talking about concepts, values, you're talking about history, and you're talking about policy issues. So having that time is really useful. It's one reason why we've split out the sort of the expert roundtable from the deliberative audience experience. So we have two tracks now, instead of trying to all fit it in 2 hours. But maybe you don't have time, or your context dictates a shorter period of time. You can have an 1.5 hours or an hour-long experience as well. And you just have to be really intentional about that hour because it goes really fast. And what is realistic in fitting it in, and there's trade-offs both ways. You probably get more people for the hour-long experience, but you can go less deep. So here's some snapshots of the deliberation guides that our fellows worked on this summer, and I'll be sharing those soon for this first one. And you can see it has background information as well as a format, for discussion, with sort of times for those community conversations. These are all adjustable, adaptable to your own context, right? But we will share these as a reference point and starting point. They all include a set of conversation agreements that we've used in our conversations since our inception. And we go through them at the beginning of every conversation. And so, again, these are adaptable. You could use your own if you have your own, but some kind of, way to get people on the same page about what to expect, how to kind of behave, how you're going to present yourself, what deliberative dispositions you're going to, bring to the conversation. And so that can be helpful. So those are, my deeper dives into some of the components. Stepping back a little bit in terms of some tips on organizing and hosting these kind of efforts. First step is just to identify people to be involved. Who on your campus, who in your organization, what other partner organizations you might work with to organize this, your community conversation, your watch party, and then reach out to them and say, hey, you want to work on this with me? That would be a first thing to do. Identify the audiences you want to invite. Map out a timeline for making all this happen. Find spaces and times, days of the week, times of the day that you think will work best for your community. And then get the word out about both the roundtables, about attending the watch parties. I mean, people can just watch it, right? They'll be able to register to each of these. You can do that, but it might be fun to organize a social event around those roundtables. And then getting the word about your community conversations using all the available media, right? Social media, emails, flyers, networks, and then of course word of mouth. That there's no substitute for just talking with people, inviting them personally. So this maps kind of the roundtables to when we recommend having the community conversations that so the following week, right? So week of October 6th, November 3rd, February 16th, and March 30th would be the week after we have the roundtables. Now you could, so the one on Tuesday, September 30th, you could have something, on Thursday or Friday of that week. That's certainly an option. We have our fall break then, so we're not doing it. But you could do it, sort of whenever, but not too far away, but maybe also giving a little bit of space for people who, have trouble scheduling more than one event in a week. Thinking about student involvement in particular, we involve our fellows and our senior fellows in the organization of all of our events. And so, thinking about who might you invite to help get students involved, what student organizations, if you have political student organizations, the college Dems, college Republicans on campus, inviting them to help out and get involved in the process is certainly an option. And then I'll end with sort of this image from our deliberation facilitator training, and because we talk about before you facilitate, you have to organize and you have to host. And what are the elements of organizing a good and successful and productive deliberation? It's these sort of 7 spokes of the deliberation organization wheel. And the thing that I hope, and I think Deandra and Kevin also hope, is that what we're doing here is we're doing a lot of this work for you, right? We've set for everyone that, we've framed the events, we've set goals, we've selected topics, we're developing roundtables, we're doing a lot of marketing for these programs. And so hopefully all this, makes it easier for you, wherever you are, to jump in and then adapt it to your context and thinking about, okay, what are my particular goals? How might I frame it for my context, for my campus? How am I going to get people out to the event? But we've done some of the foundational work, not all of it, of course, but some of it to help you get started. Because I know, having done this for 6 years now, that it's hard and it's lonely work, it's challenging work. There's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of administration stuff, a lot of emails you have to send, and so we're trying to kind of provide a foundation for you to do this that makes it a little bit easier, while also giving you the latitude, the autonomy to do it in the way you think is best for your community. So, with the image of the wheel, you have a steering wheel that you can follow, and also a wheel that moves. And the more elements in this wheel, the smoother the ride will be, and the more successful a conversation you will be able to host. So with that, thank you. I tried to talk fast so we can have a robust discussion, and I can take questions now.